Hello, beautiful bastards. The name is Wolf, and welcome back to my Spark Nova Runemaster. If you're just here for the time codes or the link to the planner, by all means, check the description box below, but make sure to hit that like button while you're at it. I would appreciate it. But yes, let's talk a little bit about the actual character before we dive into the nitty-gritty of it all. We're still using the ladle. I did try out the dagger that I spoke about in my previous video. It does work. I do believe it's slightly more single target damage, but it comes with certain concessions that I did not want to make. Like, for example, fussy mana management. I do not want that. I just want to be able to blast. And blasting we are. Massive AoE, sometimes even screen white with the correct amount of procs. We also have tremendous amount of single target regardless, even though we are on what I consider to be mediocre gear. We are still missing a bunch of exalted intelligence, like on the gloves, for example, on the boots. We are still missing LP on pretty much most of our uniques. Most of my uniques are actually naked in that sense, which is very frustrating. Despite the fact that I dumped all my prophecy on it, I cannot find for the life of me a single LP on, let's say, my fragment, the star of the show, the fragment of the enigma. I can't believe my luck. It is so awful sometimes. However, mediocre gear aside, as you can see, we are smooth sailing right now. Currently trying to level up this monolith to like roughly 300. That's kind of where I want to start my primary farming levels. But yeah, so far though, I have pushed other monoliths to 300, and I have not even considered even trying to pay attention. It's so safe, so fast. With the experimental affixes, it's like butter. It is my favorite build so far. Single targets, clearly the best I've ever had. The AoE, clearly the best I've ever had. And even on single target bosses that live long enough, like tier 4 dungeons, we can generate up to 25 to 30k ward, while also having not one, not two, but three damage reduction abilities that we can leverage to make sure we can just ignore mechanics, which is absolutely insane. Runemasters are nuts, and I am very happy that I tried one out. But yes, having that said, the gameplay, as you can see here, as I stated, is like a little over 200 corruption. We're currently pushing for more. But having that said, though, this can easily push way into like 500. I'm even expecting a simple 1,000 to occur with some better gear, because I've seen people push with similar builds to far more obscene numbers. But honestly, beyond 500, I think you're just showing off, really. But maybe that's just me. Having that said, though, I hope you enjoy my little build project here. And let's talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty. So I know the planner looks intimidating. I assure you it is not. We do have mandatory uniques, but we do not have mandatory slams. It's more like a chase that you can perhaps pursue if you really enjoy the build. But speaking of mandatory uniques, the star of the show, of course, Fragment of the Enigma. This is one of the base items we are building the build around. So you must have this. And if you do with an LP, try to get some spell crit on it if you're not yet capped on the spell crit chance. You can always check this in your stats, but otherwise, as you can see, you want to have this at least be 100%. If you are capped or close to capped, consider getting some cast speed, some crit multi, maybe some spell damage. And the same thing counts for the Mad Alchemist Ladle. I do think this is a mandatory unique simply because of what it enables and how fast you can scale the cast speed with intelligence. But on top of that, it gives you mana cost reduction, which is very, very good for this build. Mandatory, if you will. And if you do find one with an LP, spell crit would be really, really nice. Otherwise, spell damage, crit multi, cast speed, you get the idea. In terms of the helm, prismatic gaze, we are doing this primarily for this line over here. It helps us get some base crit, which allows us to scale crit chance a lot more efficiently. Try to get a 4% one. I honestly think a 4% one is better than an LP with a lower roll. So try to get a 4% with an LP, and then when you do, intelligence is a must slam if you can have it. After all, we are instackers. In terms of the unstable core, our chest piece, try to hit a nice high level of mana on that roll so we can hit the 300. As long as you are above 300 max mana, you're fine. But other than that, intelligence slam would be ideal. I have never seen this item drop with LP, despite the fact that I've seen it drop more than 10 times with the Circle of Fortune buff. So I don't know what's going on. If you can find it with LP, slam intelligence. Go forth. Have fun. The amulet right here is just a basic crit amulet. We are looking for spell crit, crit multi, or maybe some spell damage if that's easier to get. Shred armor is really, really nice. And then whatever resistance we need to cap ourselves, as you can see. Double ring, opal, very solid. Cooldown recovery attributes, makes sense. We want as high an intelligence as possible on both of them. Then we want spell damage, otherwise maybe some lightning damage. Both work. Spell damage is slightly better due to some of the additional elements that are just naturally in the abilities we use. And the numbers are the same. And then, of course, any kind of resistances that will help you cap out. Remember, resistances are relatively flexible. You don't need to pursue them exactly in the way that I've said. You can put them on other pieces of gear if you must. The belt is just a single strand of souls with lightning damage. It's a very, very comfy belt. If you find Strand of Souls to be tricky to get, like I do, you can find an alternative unique. Despite Strand of Souls being, the Bis one. But you can also find, this is kind of like a softer version of it. Communion of the Erased, which has the same notes, just slightly weaker. Mana spent gain is 1. And you can get more nodes on this, more affixes, because it is a Weaver item, which is very, very lovely. So maybe you can get some good rolls on it through the sheer power of the Weaver. Maybe some resistances, maybe a cleanse, who knows? As long as you try to get some of that sexy lightning damage, you'll be absolutely fine. Otherwise, get lucky and get a Strand of Souls. You know, just hit. You know the drill. Just hit. In terms of the glove, in a perfect world, we would get a Swaddling of the Erased with intelligence, cast speed, and maybe a shred armor. That would be super, super nice. Otherwise, if you don't want to try to roll that through the Weaver RNG, you can just go and try to make your own basic glove. I could recommend Eternal Gauntlet if you want a little bit more tank. Or otherwise, Solar Embraces if you want a little bit more crit. But otherwise, you can just make them. Get some intelligence, cast speed, shred armor. In that case, you also have some additional suffixes you could perhaps add to it. Maybe some crit reduction if you still need that. Some armor to help you defend yourselves. Maybe some frailty if you want to round that out. If you have like a really poor ladle for that. Otherwise, may I recommend some additional resistances to help you maybe cap out. Opening up a blessing maybe, or better idols. It is entirely up to you. But in a unique world, or in the perfect world, we would want to have a unique, but at least intelligence and some cast speed. I think that would be, honestly, one of the better options we can have. Because the Weaver item is just so nice. We get more cast speed, we get more attributes, and then also a more spell damage, low health enemy modifier, while some base mana and a little bit of armor. It's just a really nice glove. I love Swaddling of the Erased. In terms of the boots, I prefer the Citadel boots. Other people like certain LP intellect stacking boots, like Blood of the Exile. You can totally do that. Lots of intelligence, lots of dex, lots of strength, lots of movement speed. If you can find a very nice Blood of the Exile LP, then you can get movement speed and intelligence on it, by all means, run that. But I think it's a little tricky to do that. So I prefer just getting a Citadel boot, because that also allows me a lot easier of a time to try to get the intelligence, to try to get the movement speed, to get the armor reduction for crit immunity, but also with the, what I am starting to believe is a mandatory affix, this Seconds of Haste after you use the reversal skill. This is such a powerful quality of life. I don't think I can run a build without it anymore. It is so incredibly good. My god, my character felt so strong, so fast, such a badass once I got this particular node. It is so good. And of course, cooldown recovery speaks for itself. So go forth and make your decisions. This is where things get a little interesting. Twisted Heart of Acheros is the best relic, but you want at least from your relic spot, if you can help it, a total of 4 Frost Claws. Now we, with the Twisted Heart of Acheros, get a total of +5, because of course there is the elemental skill node right here. So if you can get like a Twisted Heart of the Acheros with a +3, that works. If you can get a regular relic with like a +4 Exalted Frost Claw, that works. But you do need to get some Frost Claw levels on your relic, because we desperately are starved for Frost Claw levels in this build. So make sure you have that. You can't really play the build comfortably until you do. Speaking of things you need to play the build comfortably, Ornate Glass Idol, mana efficiency with Frost Claw. You need that mod twice. That's pretty much the only thing you need. Other than that, you can just add whatever you want. Maybe you want a little bit more mana because you are still suffering from being sub 300. Or maybe you want some more resistances. Consider that. You can also opt for less crit chance or less damage and get some nice mana mods here, like mana or mana armor. I believe there's one here. Yep, down here. You can kind of mix and match based on what you need. But in a perfect world, 300 damage mods are some of the most powerful damage mods you can get in idols. And then also we are getting some lightning aegis in the build through one of our skills. So a little bit of cast speed bonus there, and perhaps some more damage, but perhaps also you want more leech, or not leech, but resistances. You have flexibility. The only two mandatory mods are mana efficiency with Frostclaw once, and another one here for twice. That's the only thing. Now I've opted for the resistance blessings still, simply because I want to try to run more Weaver items, and where I have very little flexibility on what they roll, it's luck of the draw. So if we have more resistances, we have more wiggle room, and we don't have to roll something very, very specific. So, Void Res, All Res, a little bit of armor, of course Fizz Res, and then Lightning Shred for the blessing. Very simple stuff. After all, we are a lightning build. So, that's kind of what the gear is. Basic, in-stacking, spark gear. Now, when we are going into the passives, things get a little bit more interesting. We are picking up all the intellect nodes, obviously, because we're in-stackers. We are picking up Arcane Momentum in the Sorcerer tree. We are picking up Essence of Celerity, as well as Runemaster, as well as Rift Bolt. If you want to run the Twisted Heart of Okeros, make sure you have a source of leech. I pick it up in the Rift Bolt. If you have excess resistances, you could also pick it up with the Grand Hunger of the Void as a blessing. But considering how the points work out, I think that the Rift Bolt is really, really nice. I just mentioned this for the first thing here, because otherwise you might find yourself just low health. And with low health, the mechanic of the Twisted Heart doesn't work because it's based off current health. So you want some leech there, right? That's for the Sorcerer, however. At the base Mage class, it's the simple 8 Intelligence, 2 Travel Notes of Elementalist, 5 points in Mage Flurry for some cast speed, and then 5 Knowledge of Destruction for crit chance and crit multi, just to get to 20 so we can actually get to the Sorcerer. Spellblade is empty, and then the Runemaster is filled with some goodies. 5 points of Unsealed Mana at least. We have 8 points in Arcane Focus, 5 points in Runeward Catalysm, that's just more damage when they are low. Mental Catalysis, really good intelligence and crit reduction. Edict of the Scion, increased area for area skills, which is what both our Novas and our Sparks are. Very, very good. Ward per rune on area skill use, just delightful. Because our Frostclaw is also considered area. Mind you, we have Inscribed Instrument because we are using a wand. That's what the ladle is. So we get 72% crit multi here, which is so very good. 1 point in Never Late to enable 3 points of Rune of Dilation, which means if we use its reversal skill, like our Flame Rush, big buff to movement speed constantly, as well as a little bit of cast speed, which is very, very comfy. We are picking up 5 points of Brands of Deception to get this point bonus. This way we allow ourselves to continuously brand people automatically, because our Frostclaw is more than 50 mana, plus it's a lightning skill now. So that's constantly going to apply brand, which is important in just a second. We have Ancient Inscriptions, as you can see, plus 8 intelligence, giving us cooldown recovery based on int as well. A singular point in Runeward Hurricane because of damage. And then we have 4 points in Jagged Veil at least for the point bonus. A little bit of crit multi, as well as ward on crit at a base level, which is really, really really good, especially with the crit that we have, right? And then 7 points in Celestial Doom. This allows, as you can see, branded bosses to give us a bunch of ward and suffer the consequences of increased spell damage on our side, which is what we are enabling with the Brand of Deception prior. Now I've still got 3 points, and I think the best thing you can do simply is Unsealed Mana, and then the 2 points in Ancient Inscriptions. But you could try to cut down wherever you can, so that you may spec in the points right here, Mana Shell, for some additional mana if you need it to get your mana buffed over 300. It's a temporary solution if you want to cross that boundary. Otherwise, yeah, try to get 2 points of the Ancient Inscription, and then you can pick up some cast speed here with a 6 out of 6 unsealed mana as well, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, that's kind of the passive tree. Now for the skills, they have changed a little bit. Frostclaw, 27 points. As you can see, we still have 3 out of 3 Celestial Conflux. This is how we are triggering the Elemental Nova. We are picking up Gift of Winter for mana reduction and the mana gain back. We are also going all the way up to Frozen Rain to get some mana reduction. We're going down through Shiver Shell because there's a good chance we are crit capped. If you're not, Rending Cascade is probably more valuable just to help with crits and all the benefits from critting. We do want to pick up everything in the end here. Crack in the Eyes, Ever Onward, Frozen Malice, on the snow or on through the snow. This is what makes the Frostclaw kind of go absolutely insane and allow you to proc multiple Celestial Confluxes and multiple Gift of Winters and apply all kinds of debuffs, especially against single targets when you have the Volley of the Glass. Don't spec into this until you have all your mana reduction and your idle sorted, because otherwise you're just going to run out of mana constantly. It's a pain in the butt. And to facilitate as well the Volley of the Glass, we're going through Spark Artillery to make our Frostclaw lightning, obviously. But then we can pick up with our access point Spark of Celerity, which makes the Frostclaw a lot more kinder on our mana pool. Although, mind you, RNG can still kinda be unkind, since most of our mana comes back from the Gift of Winter, but it's a 36% chance. A 1 in 3, basically. So sometimes if you have a long sequence of bad luck, you might sometimes have to stagger your casting to get some mana back naturally. Just keep that in mind. We're picking up Static Orb as well, but we're not speccing very deep into it. We're speccing into it to get Static Armor, which is Lightning Aegis, which is another 50% increased lightning damage and 25% less damage taken, which is really, really nice. And we are picking up some note on the left here. 1, some mana cost reduction. 2, some more mana cost reduction. And then 3, we are turning it into Frost. The reason why we're turning it into Frost is because we need a Frost skill on our action bar due to the Runic Invocation and the Immutable Order, but more about that in just a second. Elemental Nova, these are the big explosions. We are picking up 3 points in Cryomantic Fragility. Since we have the wand, we can get to 0 cost with only 3 points as opposed to 4. We are picking up, of course, the 5 out of 5 Spark charges. We are a Spark build after all. We are getting 5 out of 5 Elemental Expanse for 100% area, and we are getting 1 point in Infernal Nova for 250% area. And because we are triggering Elemental Nova, it circumvents the cooldown, which is why we have so many big ones. Any access points can be put into Overcharge or otherwise Charge Destruction if you're still trying to cap yourself to help with some early stages of crit. This will give you more wards and, of course, all kinds of benefits as well through the Runemaster passive tree. Ward is a wonderful, powerful, very powerful defensive ability. We are picking up the haste down here with Flame Runner, so we have more speed. Very, very good. We're also picking up the typical +1 dual Aegis for the extra charge. Always very comfortable, especially since we have a lot of cooldown reduction. And then we also have the 5 out of 5 barrier. Normally, we would have 3 out of 3 prismatic buffer, but we have to spec not 1 but 2 points to get the Frost Ward to make our Fire Ward a cold spell for the sake of our Runic Invocation, which is why we're actually losing 2 points in prismatic buffer. But I assure you, we're still very tanky. Now, Runic Invocation is the big spell that consumes the runes we summon, and we are locking this into place through Immutable Order. We want a Cold Fire Cold spell. Now, if you look here, as you can see, Flame Ward, we converted it to cold, so it's a cold spell. This is an unspec'd Flame Rush, so it's a fire spell. Runic Invocation doesn't count. And then we have Static Orb here, which we converted to cold, so that ends up being a cold spell. So we have cold, fire, cold, which means if we cast, the Immutable Order makes it so that it's always going to be cold, fire, cold, which is a very powerful defensive buff that gives you 30% damage reduction for like 13 seconds, I believe, as well as a bunch of ward over time based on your intellect and a bunch of burst ward based on your intellect. Very, very good for an instacker. To facilitate this, we are picking up a subtle double cast here with Runic Energy, Copied Scrolls, and 1 point on Arcane Battery. Only 3 points in copied scrolls, only 3 points in runic energy. This makes it so that within like 1 or 2 seconds of spamming Frostclaw, you are at max stack. So the next time you press Runic Invocation, it's a guaranteed copied spell. So you get double the burst ward. Not really mandatory, but I just like the little extra ward. We are picking up 2 points of Adept Runescribing for a little bit of cooldown reduction. We are maxing out Attuned Approach for mana refunding, keeping us mana... otherwise we might get mana starve, which is unfortunate. 4 points of Transcribed Power. Since we can basically spam this skill with this setup, we can easily keep this buff up permanently, in addition to the buff the Runic Invocation itself gives for consuming the Cold Fire Cold runes. Then we have Unbridled Rune as a travel node, Devastating Starfold, travel node, Cosmic Mind, a travel node, and then we have the big notable here, Elemental Starfields. Every single time we press our invocation, we are summoning at 1, not 2, but 3 Elemental Novas, which of course are these big explosions that now also happen around us. So everything kind of interacts with one another. I hope that kind of made sense. Otherwise, yeah, go check out my stream or for some gameplay. Otherwise, I hope the planner speaks for itself. It is basically just a delightful instacker and a Frostclaw triggering all our explosions with a bunch of abilities that buff us. That's kind of the premise of the build, and it is absolutely destroying even on my mediocre life gear. But yeah, this is what I'm using for myself as a planner to pursue. So hopefully it will inspire you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. And I will catch you guys next time. I'm out!